Hello and welcome to Drive-In Double Feature Podcast. I'm Nathan,
I'm Ryan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into today's episode, I want to talk to you about our Patreon. Over at patreon.com/Drive-In Double Feature Podcast, we have a bunch of bonus content over there, and we've been uploading prolifically on there. So be sure to check that out. There's a lot of fun stuff. It's fun, as Ryan would say. It's fun. It's fun.
It's very prolific, like Nathan says,
Prolific.
Like a serial killer.
And you mimicked you mimicked my hand movement that I did that these people won't ever get to see. But let's move into another week of Bondmara, not Bondzilla. We are talking about the last Timothy Dalton movie. I'm so sad to be here after all this time with License to Kill from 1989. Also, the last movie directed by John Glenn, who's been directing these movies back to back to back. So License to Kill. Have you ever seen this one, Ryan?
Never.
No. Yeah, I think both of us have talked about not really knowing Dalton movies, like his Bond run that well, which is only 2 movies. I have heard of this one. This one's very notorious, at least with fans, it seems like, for being very dark, like incredibly dark, which gave me a weird notion of like, okay, this is going to be similar to like the Daniel Craig ones. No, no, it still has some levity, but it is definitely the darkest they've made up to this point.
Yeah, I would say this one's probably the most grounded one out of all of them. Like, because Bond in this one doesn't have a ton of gadgets. Well, he does later, but in the beginning, he doesn't have any. So it's just kind of like Bond in his own elements.
Exactly. It's a Bond focused story. They take out a lot of elements. Like Moneypenny is in this movie for very minor scene, and it's that actress's last time as Moneypenny, I believe, which is funny because we talked about how boring she was in the first place.
Oh yeah, and she was never as good as Lois Maxwell.
No, of course not. And then I forget who replaces her in the Brosnan movies. I guess we'll see.
I can't remember.
I can't remember either. But yeah, I mean, this one, like I said, very notorious. It's a revenge movie with Benicio del Toro, which is crazy. Very early role for him. But let's roll in. Let's roll into this one. So, License to Kill. We got to talk about the most important part. What'd you think of this Bond movie song, Ryan?
Again, I thought it was that's probably my biggest complaint about the Dalton movies. I think the songs are very unmemorable. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, like this one, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it per se, but it's like License to Kill. It's just very. I kept waiting for the hook of the song. Like I kept waiting for like that real powerful moment that I was building up to, and I don't really feel like we got it. And I could see like I don't know, like because I mean I don't know about you, but I never ever hear about anyone being like, oh yeah, Living Daylights and License to Kill are my favorite Bond songs.
No, I don't think anybody really says that, especially not for License to Kill. I agree. It's not a bad song. It's sung by Gladys Knight, good singer. It's just, it's okay. Like the big hook, like I guess the hook is like I got a license to kill and I'm gunning straight for your heart. This is kind of lame. Like that's a weird way to put the title of the movie in your song. But yeah, it's forgettable. But I don't think the title sequence is forgettable though.
No, I was gonna say I do like the title sequence of this movie with like I liked how with like the different colored girls would like come in and like they would like do like a cartwheel or something, and it would just be like this real stuttering type of motion where it looked like a laser show kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of like a film in a way, right? Because it starts off with the camera and then it has a lot of like film grain or like film stock on it. No, it's actually really cool, and I don't have his name down now, but it's been the same person doing these title sequences for a very long time, and this is actually one of his last. I guess I also want to mention it's also Richard Maybaum, who we don't talk about very often, who is the script writer of these movies. Usually, this is his last one, and he didn't even work on it fully. Maurice Binder, sorry, there's the guy who's using the title sequences, and the producer, Mr. Broccoli, died the year after this. So this is actually Broccoli's last movie as well. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of lasts here.
Well, not the last broccoli, but
No.
the last cubby broccoli.
Yes, yeah, the last Cubby Broccoli. So we'll see how that goes whenever we get around to the next one. But there is like a gap after this. But with this one, it's kind of weird. We're returning to Bond dealing with drugs, but it's like a much more harsh drug cartel. And it's not even James Bond's full story, is what's interesting about it, because he's in America with his buddy Felix Leiter, who plays such a major role in this. Whenever, like in the movies before this, he does pop up every once in a while, but he's never really been a strong presence in these movies to me. He hardly is ever. He's more a cameo appearance than anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like he'll come in and he'll like assist Bond for a little bit, or he just comes in and dies.
Yeah.
Just like he's died before. Like he didn't die in this one, but he died like in an earlier one, didn't he?
I believe so. I forget which one, but yeah, he's supposedly dead and back. But I guess it's like Bond, right? It's Leiter's just the name.
I guess they do allude to the earlier Bonds in this movie a
Mhm.
little bit.
They love bringing up Bond's marriage. That's what they
Yeah,
because that's what they bring up. She's like, oh, you can have this because he goes to Leiter's wedding, and she's like, oh, whoever gets this next will get married, and he's just like, no, no, like this deadpan no. I actually really like that moment, and once again, I actually think Timothy Dalton much better. I feel like this happens with Bonds. Usually the first time around is not like perfect. They don't know how to make it for him. Next time I think they get it better, and I think Timothy Dalton needed something a little more serious to get into the role.
yeah. I this one, it's like I remember just thinking like the whole time, I was like, man, like it's really a shame. Like it's just he just had the two and that was it.
No, I agree. I would have loved to seen more of these. Because I mean, maybe not like this, back to going to spy stuff, but he's just a really cool dude and like very serious. And a lot of people harp on him for not being funny, but I think this movie has plenty of like silly moments. I like like I said at the beginning of this, I was told that this was really dark, a revenge movie, but you can't tell me that like this movie isn't at least a little silly when they capture the bad guy, right? At the very beginning of the movie, and then Felix and James hop out of a helicopter with parachutes into Felix's wedding. Like they
Yeah,
land, it's like, yeah, we made it, we're here. Like, come on, that's just silly.
yeah. I mean that was a little that was probably like the most comical part of the movie, I would
That's true.
say, and but too, at least it was accompanied with like a really great stunt where
Yeah.
a guy, well, it was supposed to be Bond, but obviously it was a stunt guy, and they were being lowered from a helicopter onto a plane, like and moving in the air, midair.
Yeah, it's a great setup because James Bond is hanging off the helicopter and ties it to the tail of the plane, and the plane's kind of just like laying down because that's this movie is all about. Like in the beginning, they capture the bad guy, played by Robert Davi, Sanchez, or as I think Felix Leiter calls him Sanchez. I don't.
Sanchez, yeah,
Yeah, he
yeah.
doesn't say it quite right. Uh, but
Did, did you recognize him? I recognize. I was like, where do I know that guy from? And I was
who?
like, the Sanchez.
No. Where from?
I I was like, oh, he was one of the Fratellis in the Goonies.
Oh my God. Yeah, you're right. That's great. That's actually kind of great. That makes sense. That makes sense. That's his prime role, I guess. But
Yeah, I
no.
mean this is like his big, or probably his biggest role, I would say, because
Yeah.
it's he's the main bad guy. I mean, because in the movie too, like you said, Felix is getting married and they're on their way to the wedding,
Hmm.
and they're like, oh, we were able to corner Sanchez. If we don't act now, then we need, we're going to lose it. And they're just like, okay, we got to put the wedding on hold for like a little bit. And that's what the sequence was, is them capturing Sanchez. And then they do the intro and everything. And then the intro picks up like immediately where we left off, which I'm like, I don't know if any other Bond movies, it's like they have the opening sequence with the intro, and then immediately it's like, okay, this is like right before the intro started.
Yeah, no, yeah, I don't think so. Because we've had them where, usually they don't connect to the plot, but we've had them where they connect to the plot, but it's usually a time skip. But no, it's like the title sequence just basically is like a weird stop between like a scene. Because we end up at the wedding with with Felix's wife, who's like, oh, I get to kiss Bond. I get to kiss my best man on the wedding. That's tradition. I don't think so. I don't think I've ever heard of this tradition.
Did you hear? There's like more than one person's like, oh, I'm here to kiss the bride. And
yeah.
And because the other guy, the guy who ended up being a traitor, I think it was Heller, I think his name was.
Yeah, Heller, yeah.
Yeah, the guy that ended up betraying them was like, oh, hey, I'm just stopping in here to kiss the bride, and then I'm on my way.
Wow, I've never heard of this tradition.
Killifer, that was it.
Killifer?
I think that was it, right?
Yeah, well, isn't there a character named Heller? Okay, well, then we will get into those plot points later.
Wait, yeah,
I guess
there is one called Heller. Okay,
but I think it is Killifer that is at the wedding.
Heller, somebody else. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And of course, who could forget Sharky?
Their best buddy Sharky. And I liked Sharky in this one, played by Frank McRae. Go ahead.
I was trying to remember where I saw him too, and I'm like, he was in The Wizard.
He's in The Wizard,
the Super Mario Brothers 3 movie.
Oh my god.
He was a truck driver.
I didn't know that. Okay, well, it's funny. This is the guy that I think of when I think of like police chiefs in movies, because he's the police chief in 48 Hours. And
isn't
I think
he also the police chief in another movie too? Yeah, he was a Last Action Hero.
Remember I brought that up not long ago. I was like, oh yeah, this guy. Yeah, he's in Last Action Hero. He's also the police chief in Loaded Weapon 1. He just got so typecasted. But it works.
I think that one was more of like a parody. It's like, because he's been a police chief, let's make him a police chief again.
Yeah, that's true. He's just making a joke. Well, I guess Last Action Hero and Loaded Weapon are both like parodies of that.
Yeah.
Interesting. But no, yeah, Sharky kind of goes along with them. But here's the thing. Robert Davi gets broken out of prison while in a vehicle. It's like a super intricate, like their police van falls off a bridge. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was before that scene happens, so they got him in jail, and he's basically just like, hey, like, I'm going to be out of here really soon. I'm putting up $2 million to whoever's going to bust me out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, like, as they're loading him in there, like, there's a bunch of reporters like yelling questions. Someone's like, hey, like, what do you feel about this, Sanchez? And did you hear one that was like, are you really a Colombian?
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah. Yeah, okay. That's funny. I heard it. I forgot it until you just said it. Are you really Colombian? Who asks that?
Just like,
white man?
Yeah, like, no, yeah, I was lying. I'm not Colombian. Sorry.
Sorry, guys. Weird, yeah. But yeah, they crash the vehicle. They have scuba gear in the water, and they have like the shark hunting like vehicle that they shove him into. And that's kind of where he hides out in this movie. The first part of it takes place in the Florida Keys, which is really cool. Have you ever been to the Keys?
I haven't, no.
I have. So I noticed some of the locales is actually really fun, because they end up, this is a little later, but they end up at the Ernest Hemingway house, which I saw. So I thought that was really cool to see. They get their revenge, right? They get Felix Leiter, and they actually give him quite a horrible death, not before talking him up. And Benicio del Toro's in this.
Well, he doesn't die.
Sorry, he doesn't die. You're absolutely right. But Benicio del Toro is in this, and very, very young. And the way he says one line is so.
I know you're gonna say. Go ahead.
Yeah. Where it's like, oh, what about my wife? And he's like, don't worry, we gave her a real good honeymoon. honeymoon.
We gave her a really nice honeymoon.
It seemed like a bad take that they left in the movie, but it's so recognizable. One of the great Bond lines.
I don't understand though, like why they so like why they because they kill his wife
Mhm.
and then they don't kill Felix. They hold him over a tank and let a shark eat his leg.
Yeah, exactly. They let a shark eat his leg, and then he gets found, and he ends up in the hospital. I agree. I don't. I think the killing the wife thing maybe was. I don't know how planned that was, because it seemed like the henchmen went in and they pretty much assaulted her and she died. So I wonder if they took it too far. It also could be a misogyny thing, because at the beginning of the movie we didn't talk about Robert Davi finds his girl Lupe. They call her Loopy in this movie sometimes, which is kind of bad. But finds her cheating, and he like beats her with like a whip and like whips her back. So that could be a part of it too. I don't know.
That was also like he was on the run. Like he was there, like, come on, we need to go. And he's like, oh no, I need time to whip my girlfriend. Hold on.
Let me, yeah. Can you get me over to my girlfriend so I could whip her real quick?
Yeah, like that was like on his mind. uh, but yeah, that's kind of like what sets the motion forward in this movie. Because
Mhm.
I mean, all things considered, like this guy, I mean, a drug lord like this, I would think would be kind of beneath Bond in a way. Like
Yeah.
you just don't. It's never like, oh, I got to go take out this drug lord or whatever. Which I mean, they do kind of do that in Live and Let Die. But
Mhm.
I think that one, it was more of like a like worldwide scale. Maybe
Yeah.
I can't. But this
Because
one,
didn't
it's
he
like,
didn't he want to get everybody addicted to drugs? It's silly, but it was still like, I want everybody to be hooked on my stuff. And this
right,
one,
exactly.
and like you said, this one's more grounded. He's just a drug dealer. Like he's horrible and he's finding ways to smuggle it, but it's like you said, not on a global scale.
Yeah, and that just sends Bond into a rage when he finds a half-eaten Felix.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's this movie. Yeah, Bond goes rogue and he wants revenge, and he goes after Sanchez, and he's pretty much mean and like angry the whole movie. And I guess that's what makes this one different. I guess that's why I liked it so much. I actually really liked License to Kill, because it just felt different. It really stood out to me. It feels like a really good precursor to the Daniel Craig stuff.
Yeah, I mean, what I do like too is like they kind of allude to what's going to happen later in
Mm-hmm.
the movie, because remember, like in the beginning, like when they're doing like the parachuting with the towards going to the wedding and stuff, like Felix makes a very clear point. It's like, hey, you're part of the British government. This does not concern you. You're strictly coming as an observer.
Mm-hmm.
Do not do anything.
Yeah.
And that's, he'd been, of course, Bond, he does his own thing or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
he kind of takes it upon himself, like, I'm gonna go take out Sanchez since he hurt Felix and killed his wife and everything. And then M shows up, and M was like, no, that's an American issue. This
Yeah.
doesn't concern you. We already got your next assignment lined up already. And he's
Mm-hmm.
just like, well, then I quit. And then he's just like, M's like, all right, well, then your license to kill has been revoked.
Yeah, and then he slaps the crap out of M, and he gets right out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, but going to what you were saying, when they kind of went in that route, and they're like, oh no, Bond's gone like fully rogue this
Mm-hmm.
time, because they did something like that before. I don't know if you remember, like, I forget which one, but there was
Mm-hmm.
another Bond movie where they were kind of like, hey, you got this time frame.
Yeah.
Like, if anyone asks you if you're working on this case, we're not gonna, we're not gonna confirm that. We're gonna just say you've taken a leave of absence or something or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, and it was kind of like played though, like wink wink, right? Like,
Yeah,
M and the gang, they were like, oh well, you're rogue, but we, wink, we got your back kind of deal. This is fully like, not that nobody is with him, but everybody who does help him shouldn't be. There is
yeah.
there's no reason to help him.
Yeah, but when they went that angle, I really liked that angle, and yeah,
Mhm.
I like this movie a lot too. Like I
Mhm.
was kind of blown away by it. Like I was
Yeah,
just
no.
like,
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, like this feels like a totally new Bond.
It does, yeah. And I mean, it's crazy. It felt like you said, a new Bond. It felt right for the time. It feels like movies we would cover on this show, like as far as like a revenge-driven plot against a drug lord, but like has like this upper class, like higher class feeling with Bond, and Timothy Dalton is just really rocking it in this role. Um, he's rocking and rolling. Uh, but
I don't get it.
I don't either. But I'm saying crap. But he does figure things out really fast. There's that one scene where he's with Sharky to get into like this marina, the last one where they're hiding out Davi, where they have a great white shark. And in a really funny, it's not really funny, but it's an interesting scene whenever James Bond throws like the briefcase of money at this guy, because the guy's like, "Hey, I got $2 million. It's in that briefcase, and I'll split it with you." And then James Bond says, "Well, you can take it," and throws it at him. And the guy who's hanging onto a chain over a shark decides, "Oh, I'm gonna let go, and I'm gonna grab the briefcase," and he falls in with the shark.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know, because if you're hanging above something and
Mm-hmm.
like you got both your arms hanging, and then somebody throws a briefcase at you, like why would you like? Oh, I gotta let go and catch it.
Because it's got $2 million in the movie. He does try to catch it with one hand. I think it's like, I can do this, I can get it with one hand, and then like it fails him. uh so that means Bond doesn't kill him.
No,
Yeah, but
technically not.
here's the
But
thing though. Oh, what's up?
I was gonna say, did you notice too, like how many times they mention sharks in this movie? Like
Yes, it's a very
they
shark heavy movie.
like there's a character named Sharky. There's a killer shark. Multiple times they say, "Let's go shark hunting."
Yeah, I don't know what's up with the shark theming in this one. uh
Shark Week.
oh, we should have waited. I don't know when Shark Week is. But Sharky ends up dying though, which is really sad. So another one bites the dust, and that makes that makes Bond even angrier. Um, but then it's kind of like, it's an investigative mystery movie, and he gets a lead on the Bond girl in this movie. I guess this movie technically has two Bond girls, because you do have Lupe, who, did you notice the actress that played Lupe? Do you know what else she's done?
Mortal Kombat,
Yeah, she's Katana in Mortal Kombat. And
and one of the other drug lords is Shang Tsung, and
oh my,
and
oh,
from
you're right. That okay, I recognized him, and I was like, I'm glad you pointed that out to me.
yeah, I was like, because I've watched that trailer for Mortal Kombat probably like 100 times, and because
Hmm.
and it's like I don't need to run, and it's just
So that anytime you see that guy, that's what the first thing
yeah,
you think of.
I was like, oh my god, it's Shang Tsung.
No, I love that. But we also have another Bond girl, Carrie Lowell, is in this movie, and she's playing Pam Bouvier, not related to Marge. I'm just throwing out these great jokes tonight.
Mar- Marchu from Pee Wee's Big
Yeah,
Adventure.
yeah, from Pee Wee's Big Adventure, the one with the funky face.
Yeah,
Uh,
large Marge.
yeah, but Pam is an army military American, and they basically have to team up to go against this, because I guess this gets into it a little bit later, but I do think it kind of loses me whenever it has this idea that it's more than just his revenge, because there's like this whole plot element of Stinger missiles that are from the military that they're buying from him. I think that whole plot element, it doesn't feel needed. It could have just been a revenge plot against a drug lord.
Well, it kind of feels like an afterthought because
Mhm.
I mean, this is jumping ahead, but like, he recruits Pam,
Mhm.
and they basically are trying to infiltrate Sanchez's operation, and they go into the
Mhm.
casino and everything, and he's able to get on Sanchez's good side,
Mhm.
and he sees like Pam like talking with one of the one of the people there, and he immediately thinks she's trying to portray him, and then she goes into that whole plot about the stingers. She's like, no, this is way bigger than just you, Bond,
Yeah, this is bigger than your vendetta,
and
Bond.
but I don't really feel like they really brought that message home. Like it's just like I kind of felt like they just like
Yeah.
abandoned it at a certain point.
Yeah, because he brings it up at the end to save his life, but the guy that's the what was the guy you said? Uh the one that's betraying them, he just ends up dead as for this like the Stinger missile kind of deal. He ends up dead at the end of the movie, and it just feels like okay, that plot kind of went nowhere.
Wait, which guy?
The one that gets killed by the forklift at the end of the movie.
Wait, isn't that the guy that betrayed Felix? He was the one that died in the Shark Tank.
Yeah, but isn't there like another guy who's betraying them?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. See, that's the thing with this plot line. I think this is probably the most uninteresting plot line. They go down the hallway at the end, and he's like dead by impaled by a forklift, and Bond has that line. He's like, "Oh, I guess he meant a dead end."
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, it kind of that's an odd scene. Another odd thing about this movie is Wayne Newton's in it, playing like
Oh, yeah.
a fake televangelist, which is another super weird element of this. I guess he's a televangelist that gets donations, but it's also secretly funneling drug money through it, and he runs like almost like a cult in this really weird place.
Oh, yeah. That was such a cool looking place, and
It
it's just.
was, yeah.
And when I saw him, I'm like, I thought they were just gonna, he was gonna have that little camp because he has like a little scene where he's like taking donations over the phone. I thought it was gonna be like oh haha, like that's Wayne Newton type of thing. But then he ends up coming back and having like a big part where he tries to seduce Pam, and I'm like, and it's just so weird seeing Wayne Newton doing that.
I know, yeah, it feels like kind of gross because Wayne Newton's like a night, Mr. Las Vegas or whatever, ran all those shows, and it makes you like feel a little gross to see Wayne Newton like trying to like bringing Pam to his bedroom and being like, oh, you could learn from me and on this bed.
Yeah, well, basically, he's running a sex cult.
Yeah, exactly. Super weird. And his catchphrase is "Bless your heart."
Yeah, well, it is funny though. That part's kind of funny where he like she keeps betraying, like outsmarting him, and he's just like he likes it kind of. He's just like, yeah. Bless your heart.
Yeah, I actually liked Wayne Newton. I think it's a funny cameo. It's kind of like just a weird cameo, like just odd.
There was one other person I recognized in this movie, and you probably won't, but the guy Truman Lodge, like the business guy that was like on the phones, like, see right there, we got our donate. Like he had the briefcase.
Yeah, like the Wall
everything.
Street guy. Yeah.
Yeah. He's the lead in Return of the Killer Tomatoes, and I was like, oh my god, it's him.
Oh my god! Wow. Yeah, I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah.
He kind of looked like the guy from The Whitest Kid You Know to me. The guy who directed Barbarian. He looked like that guy to me.
Okay.
You'll have to look him up. But God, we've kind of hopped all around, but I guess one element that I do really like about this is it becomes a team movie with Pam, Bond, and Q, and this is probably one of the best Q roles in any Bond movie because he plays such a huge part in this. Like he's like comic relief. He's helping Bond. He's a part of the operation because I guess Moneypenny feels bad for Bond, and she finds out where Bond's at and sends Q out, and Q brings all these gadgets to help them out. Has a really great scene of like showing like a toothpaste that's like an explosive, a camera with a laser, and of course Pam uses it and almost accidentally blasts Q and Bond.
Yeah, that's a good scene. This is probably like the best. This is probably the best movie for Q.
I agree. Yeah, I think they really did him well, and Desmond Llewellyn, I know he's going to be out of the movies like in a few movies from now. I think he's in GoldenEye. I don't know about the next one.
I think Tomorrow Never. I think World Is Not Enough. Maybe is the last one, or maybe it's Tomorrow Never Dies. But anyway,
but
But
he's yeah, this is one of his last, and I think this is a really good like swan song for the character almost.
yeah, I really liked him in this movie. You know, I the one aspect too I also really liked is the like you said, there was two Bond girls in this
Hmm.
movie, and there are scenes where Bond kind of has like these tender moments with each one of them, and
Hmm.
there's like, and he does like a big action sequence with each one of them where they team up. So
Hmm.
I mean, in the back of my mind, I guess I knew he was going to be picking Pam, but for a minute, you know, it was like, huh, I don't know which one he's going to pick in the end of this movie.
Yeah, I assumed it would be Pam because she's like I don't know, it just she seemed like the bigger star of the movie. Lupe ended up kind of going a little more to the background, but I did like that aspect. I did like the romance between both of them. They kind of become jealous of each other because there's that one scene where uh Lupe has to like inform them of what was going on where Bond was at. She's like, "Oh yeah, Bond spent the night with me," and Pam gets like jealous, and I think Q's in the background. He like rolls his eyes at this, which is really
Yeah.
funny. Um,
Um, and that one thing I did read about the movie and was that like Bond really doesn't have like sex that much in this movie, like compared to the
mhm.
other movies. And they said at the time, like, I don't know how true this is, but at the time they asked Timothy Dalton about it, and he was just like, they asked, it's like, oh, well, is Bond not having as much sex because of the big AIDS epidemic? And he's like, no, no, that's not the case. And then he said in 2007 that, yeah, that was the case.
Oh, what? Maybe he just didn't want to admit it then.
Well, I guess well, yeah, like they didn't want to have him like on screen having like casual like sex with a stranger or something like that. I don't know.
Interesting. Pam has it may or may not have AIDS. The movie
Or
would
he
never
does.
tell us. Or I mean, it's quite possible that he does.
Yeah,
Um,
he'd be more likely.
that's funny. I did not know that. But no, their relationship's good, and they end up working together. It's the return of a secret underground base, which we haven't seen that in a little bit because they kind of have a secret. I don't know if it's underground, but they have a secret base for the drug ring because it's a super weird plot line where the cocaine that they're smuggling, they're turning it or they're mixing it into gasoline. So when the gasoline
Yeah,
it's used, it becomes cocaine again. They can like squeeze it out of there. I,
yeah,
wild. This seems like a great idea. I don't know why no one was taking notes.
yeah. Then at the end there was like this big tanker chase, and like each one that would crash, like Truman Lodge was like, oh, there it goes. That's $30 million right there.
Yeah, yeah, and that last action scene is nuts with the truck, the tankers, like running down the like the desert area, wrecking each other. Did you
Hmm.
happen to watch the making of for this?
Yeah,
I got really annoyed by the making of because they went on for so long about how they thought this was like a haunted place to film because so many things went wrong.
yeah.
There was the explosion that looked like a hand, and they're like, "Yeah, we thought it was like the hand of God or something." I was like, "What are you talking about? Shut up!"
And they kept saying how many issues there were filming this movie or whatever,
Mhm.
and I mean it was because supposedly it was filmed on like indigenous grounds or
Mhm.
whatever. But I was annoyed too. Like, oh yeah, this movie set was haunted. I'm like, yeah, shut up. Like,
Yeah, can we talk about the making of this movie, please?
yeah, I we haven't said it earlier. I mean, I there's some good infos in those making ofs, but like I feel like a lot of them are just like, this is how we shot this stunt, and this is how we shot this stunt. It's like
Yeah, I agree.
I never really feel like I get like a ton of insight out of them.
No, I actually really felt that on this one too, because this one it seemed like, oh, we talked about this stunt, the final stunt, and that's it. There was not enough like in between. And it was
Yeah,
really
and then everyone loved the movie. Great.
yeah, that's the thing. It was really quick to dismiss that this movie wasn't like that well loved upon release and was kind of a black sheep for the franchise until recently. And they're like, oh, it's a big fan. John Glenn was like, this is the best movie I've ever made, which I mean, he can believe that, I'm sure, but honestly might be
I
true. But
It
it's
might be.
still,
Yeah.
uh, well, I haven't seen his whole filmography.
No. So we never know. I but yeah, I was looking, and I think one aspect they attribute this to was that this movie had a lot of competition, like when it first dropped,
Mhm.
because I think they said like at the time, I think even still to this day, it's like the least financially successful Bond
Wow.
out of them. That's when accounting for inflation. At
Mhm.
least no, I should pair it with in the U.S.
Yes, yeah, it wasn't a hit in the US.
because it only made $30 million. It still made 150 million at the box office, but
Mhm.
only 30 million that accounted for the U.S. and that's like really low for a U.S. bond
Yeah.
release, I would say. But they said, like I said, they were competing against um, Lethal Weapon 2, Ghostbusters 2, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and Batman.
Wow, what a huge year for movies. So I get it.
Yeah, and I mean, and they lost to Sean Connery.
Yeah, of course they did. Yeah, wow. I'm sure Sean Connery was singing and dancing.
Probably
Um,
was. Yeah.
yeah. Well, that sucks for this movie. It sucks that it got like such a bad reputation at the beginning because I even went back and so Roger Ebert later on would warm up to this movie like a lot of audiences did, but his initial review is not very positive. Just looking at it, it seemed like he was looking for more levity, and I think that's it. I think a lot of people wanted a little more humor out of this because you got to think about the Roger Moore movies. Those were like some of them were like borderline just like straight comedies mixed with some action. This is very dialed back. There's jokes, but it's mostly dead serious. And I think that's kind of maybe why it turned off a lot of people.
Maybe so. Yeah. I think that happens a lot of times with some movies where it's just like people don't really appreciate it when it's out. They're like, well, you didn't do the same thing over and over again. So like,
Yeah.
I hate this movie, kind of like Halloween 3,
Yeah.
where it's like, but then it's like, 20, 30 years later, like people are actually watching it. It's like, oh, it's actually really good. Like this is actually a good movie. And um, that seems to be the case. Like people are always underappreciating the Timothy Dalton movies. Like they
Mm.
always, but now I think it's come back around where it's like now it's like, oh no, like his two are like probably like two of the best Bond movies that were made.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Which it wasn't that way for a while, and it really sucks because I don't know Timothy Dalton's position on that. I'm sure he would have loved to have done more Bonds, and I wish he would have because I think I keep seeing a video, and I should watch it at some point about how GoldenEye was supposed to be a Dalton movie, and it had kind of a different plot and everything, and that would have been interesting to see.
Yeah, well, it was originally they were going to do a movie and start shooting like the following year in 1990 called Property of a Lady.
Hmm.
And then the plans for that kind of fell through. And Timothy Dalton was under contract until 1994.
Hmm.
And the movie never came to fruition. And think like him and the producers kind of felt like he had to move on type of thing.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, and that's really sad. So I mean, we could go into the ending and everything, but I think we did a good summation. And I actually think if you're not a big Bond person and you want to check out a Bond movie, this is actually a really good one, a good more modern one. If you don't really want to go for like an old school classic Bond, this is actually a really solid one, and it's very different. So ranking these, License to Kill is my number one of his two movies.
Same here.
Same here.
I would,
Okay.
yeah.
We had to
Uh,
rank them.
yeah, we have to rank all of them. So, but no, yeah, I really, really, really like this movie a lot,
Mhm.
and it's definitely one of my favorite Bonds. One that I'd love to revisit sometime very soon. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, it's like I said, if you got turned off by any of the other Bonds or whatever, this might be a good point to go into if you're kind of turned off by some Connery or Roger Moore.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um, but I do think that wraps it up, right? You got anything else?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, Ryan, what are we going to be talking about on Thursday?
Well, Nathan, like I said, we are not doing a Godzilla movie. We
Oh no.
are, I know, but don't worry, he's just resting for now. He's just sleeping.
Oh, like in
We,
between like movies.
yeah, he's just underwater sleeping right
Hmm.
now,
Hmm.
and we are going to switch up, and we're doing a new series. It is going to be Gamera. That's right, Gamera, the savior to all children, the protector of all children. Gamera. Gamera the Giant Monster is streaming for free. You can actually go watch it on YouTube right now for free.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to do that. And if you want to email us, you can email us at drivingdoublefuturepodcast@gmail.com. You can also you can also X at us at DIDF Pod. Also, check us out on YouTube. You can subscribe to us over there. We have episodes uploading on there every day. No, we don't.
Every day.
We have
What are you putting on there?
all of our episodes are on there as well. And until next time.
Until next time.